It is useful to do a little calculation when you want to put an area of your design onto a page and have it at a particular scale. Just for the sake of argument, let's imagine that we wanted to detail this pergola. It's a wisteria growing up a stainless steel or a galvanized pergola with stainless steel wires is the design running through here. We want to be able to see from a dining room through that area. There will be long windows in this zone in the house to be built. So this is the area we are particularly interested in explaining to the client the concept behind it. If you use the distance command and measure from, say, one point of the dining room out here, you'll see it's about 7,700 millimeters. So we can do a small calculation. Let's imagine that we wanted to place this area onto an A3 sheet, which is 420. If we took 7,700 and divided it by 420, we'd get a value of about 17 or 17.5 or thereabouts. Now, as a scale, that wouldn't work. So if we tried a 1 to 20 when we go onto pages, we should be able to put this onto a sheet. So let's try it. A really useful thing to do when you're trying to do that, in other words, transfer this area onto a sheet, is just to take a crossing window and just sort of run through here and like so. So I'm using a crossing window and taking the area of interest, and you notice it being the selection tool grabs areas outside of the screen. And I'll right click and I'll create a block, and I'll call it pergola for want of a better name, and we'll go OK. And there's already one there. I'll say no, I don't want to define it. I'll go pergola 3 and I'll say OK. One gets into a little trouble if you allow blocks to get redefined. It can work very well for you, but it can also confuse you. So when you're trialing, as I am here, just use different versions of the same name. So we have a block called pergola 3. Now what we want to do is call the page command, and we'll set up a new page. We'll call it pergola 3 to indicate that that's what we're doing. You notice I've still got caps lock on, or I have caps lock on. Most of my drafting is done in uppercase for legibility. And we can say, so we've got the name pergola A3. We won't write the scale at the moment, but we could edit it later on when we get it correct. So we'll make it the current view and we'll go OK. Now if we right click and go zoom extents, and we'll zoom out a bit, we can pan across the drawing if we need to, but I'll make it quite small. So there's a small view of that A3 sheet. Now we can use the insert command and insert the block pergola 3 we're after, and we'll OK it. I'll just move that into the field of view. We're going to specify the scale as we go on screen, or we could click in here. Sorry, we could now type the value or specify on screen. So I'm going to type the value. 0.1 is a 1 to 10 scale, so 0.05 is going to be a 1 to 20 scale, which is what we're after. Rotation angle, we won't specify, it'll be rotation angle 0, but our insertion point will be able to specify. So we'll go OK, and in comes our already scaled block, and you can see I can move it here and put it roughly on the sheet. I don't get too fussy at this point, and now I can zoom extents, and I'll just pan across so you can see the whole sheet, and we'll pan across in that direction. Now you can see the sheet. I'll shrink it a little, and our positioning is not quite right, but it's a block, it's one entity, so we can simply select it and move it into position. So we'll juggle things a little bit, and as long as we see that the dining room and the line saying the line of sight, I'll just click there, and I've got the dining area there. I haven't got the text dining. I I'll drop the text on. I can add that a little later. So what I'm going to do now is just move it again a tad to get the word dining off the screen. Hopefully that's done it. And now I can see the pergola area and the wall through here. Now it's time to do some trimming, and that's precisely 1 to 20. So I select the whole block, I explode it. I have to explode the hatching, both lots of hatching I have to explode twice. And now I can, I'll leave the wall on there, but I can now remove everything that is extraneous. So we'll take that lot out to start with. That cleans things up a little. This plant we don't need, that one we don't need, that one we don't need. We can come in here with a crossing window, whoops, and get rid of that, but I better undo because I do want the wall of the house to show. I can leave those there even though they hang off, and I'll zoom out even a little more, even though they're extraneous. I'll delete that lot and zoom extents. Even though they're outside of the field of view, here I go again, I need to pan for your benefit, and pan, and move from there to say there. Now we can see that wall. I want to leave it there deliberately at that stage, but I digress. We have on this sheet of paper a 1 to 20 view of the design. I'll just clean up a little there, and we could trim off other pieces if we want. But just to show you how it's going to look, and we've got to put our logo in here, and we might even want to put a photograph of how we expect this view to be in that position. One thing to be very careful about is when you bring in a block, do check, if I say specify on screen or not, check the value in this X box here. I've decided to bring in a 1 to 50 scale just to try things out, and I'd forgotten to, and had left this set at 0.05 for our earlier one. Now I want 0.02 as my scale, so I'm not going to specify it on screen. I'm going to nominate the scale to bring in this new block. So I'll go OK, and in it comes. So this is coming in at 1 to 50, and we can position it on the paper. And in it goes. And you can see that I'm going to need to do less cleaning up, I think, than I did before, and that leaves me lots of space to dress the drawing up. The disadvantage, of course, is that what you show the client is a little smaller. Unfortunately, in Australia, we're allowed to use 1 to 10, 1 to 20, and then jump to 1 to 50. In this particular instance, the 1 to 20 is just a tad big, and the 1 to 50 is just a tad small. Of course, if you don't have to write the scale down in here, you can just scale this dynamically and make it fit. So I could do that, but I would lose the discussion train of what we've been on about. So now we're in a position to dress this up with a logo and some more information. We will select the print command, and up pops the print box. We'll say print window, and we'll pick a box around the whole page like so, and then we'll preview it. But notice that I've typed in here 1 equals 1. If you leave scale to fit, which is the setting most of us use, you notice it says 1 to 1.0232, so not quite there. So take that off and make it exactly 1. We've scaled this 1 to 20. That scaling has been done. So now we want to print the sheet out 1 equals 1, because the scaling factor has been applied. And we'll center the print, and if we preview it, we'll get a view of what the sheet looks like. So we're able to present to the client a really detailed view of the design for the pergola area. We can add some text saying view from the dining area, and if we get some more space on there by scaling the down, we might move to 1 to 50 and then put some other information on here. But I'm sure you get my drift. I'll hit escape and cancel and go back here. We are working on presenting an accurately scaled view of part of that design, and we're using the Pages feature to do that. One thing to be very careful about is when you bring in a block, do check if I say specify on screen or not. Check the value in this X box here. I've decided to bring in a 1 to 50 scale just to try things out, and I'd forgotten to and had left this set at 0.05 for our earlier one. Now I want 0.02 as my scale, so I'm not going to specify it on screen. I'm going to nominate the scale to bring in this new block. So I'll go OK, and in it comes. So this is coming in at 1 to 50, and we can position it on the paper. And in it goes. And you can see that I'm going to need to do less cleaning up, I think, than I did before, and that leaves me lots of space to dress the drawing up. The disadvantage, of course, is that what you show the client is a little smaller. Unfortunately, in Australia, we're allowed to use 1 to 10, 1 to 20, and then jump to 1 to 50. In this particular instance, the 1 to 20 is just a tad big, and the 1 to 50 is just a tad small. Of course, if you don't have to write the scale down in here, you can just scale this dynamically and make it fit. So I could do that, but I would lose the discussion train of what we've been on about. So now we're in a position to dress this up with a logo and some more information. Well, finally, here's the finished presentation. The design in GardenCAD on the left here, and a couple of images taken after the garden had been constructed. A view from the dining room out into the new garden, the wisteria growing up here, has been taken 3 years after the implementation of the design, so growth has been quite rapid.